The Parable of the Broken Clock. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy this story, you can also watch and listen from home on the NDC International Roku channel. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Her name was Naomi, and she lived the kind of life that didn't make noise. She wasn't famous, she wasn't powerful, she wasn't the kind of person people wrote stories about. She was simply a woman trying to make it through each day without falling apart. Her apartment sat above a laundromat on the corner of a busy street, a place where the hum of machines never stopped and the scent of detergent clung to the air like a memory that refused to fade. The walls were thin, the floors creaked, and the windows rattled whenever the wind grew bold. But it was home, or at least it was the place where she slept. Most mornings, Naomi woke before her alarm, not because she was rested, but because her mind never truly stopped running. Thoughts chased each other like restless children, worries, regrets, questions she didn't know how to answer. She worked at a grocery store a few blocks away. She stocked shelves, scanned groceries, and smiled at customers who rarely looked up from their phones. She was invisible in a world that moved too fast to notice her. And yet, beneath the surface of her quiet life, something inside her was aching, a longing, a whisper, a sense that she was meant for something more. But she had no idea what that more was. One rainy afternoon, after a long shift and an even longer walk home, Naomi ducked into a small thrift shop she had never seen before. The sign above the door was faded, the windows fogged, and the bell above the entrance chimed softly as she stepped inside. The shop felt like stepping into another world, dimly lit, cluttered with forgotten treasures, and filled with the scent of old books and polished wood. Shelves overflowed with trinkets, lamps, clocks, and objects that once mattered to someone. Behind the counter sat an elderly man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of stories. He looked up as she entered. "Welcome," he said, his voice warm and steady. Naomi nodded politely. "Just looking." He smiled knowingly. "People only browse when their soul is searching." She paused. The words hit deeper than she expected. She didn't respond. She simply wandered deeper into the shop, letting her fingers brush against dusty shelves and forgotten memories. Then she saw it, a small wooden clock no bigger than her hand, simple, unremarkable, but somehow calling to her. She picked it up gently. The wood was warm, smooth, and worn from years of being held. The clock face was plain, with delicate black hands frozen at 12. It wasn't ticking. She turned to the old man. "Does this work?" He studied her for a long moment before answering. "It works," he said softly, "but only for the right person." Naomi frowned. "What does that mean?" He didn't explain. He simply stood, walked toward her, and said, "If you take it home, you'll understand." She almost put it back, almost, but something inside her, and something quiet and persistent, told her to buy it. She paid the man, who wrapped the clock carefully in brown paper. As she turned to leave, he said, "One more thing." She looked back. "Don't be afraid when it stops." Naomi blinked. "Stops? It's not even ticking." He smiled. "It will." She stepped back into the rain, the little clock tucked under her coat, unsure why her heart felt heavier and lighter at the same time. That night, she placed the clock on her bedside table. It still wasn't ticking. She tapped it gently. Nothing. She sighed. Figures. She turned off the light and lay down. And then, tick! Her eyes flew open. The clock was ticking, soft, steady, alive. She sat up slowly, staring at it in disbelief. "What in the world?" But she was too tired to think. She let the sound lull her to sleep. The next morning, she woke to silence. The clock had stopped. She tapped it again. Nothing. She shrugged, got dressed, and headed to work. But something strange happened that day. A coworker named Jenna, someone Naomi barely knew, approached her during lunch. "Hey," Jenna said softly, "I don't know why, but I feel like I'm supposed to tell you something." Naomi blinked. "Okay." Jenna hesitated. "I don't know what you believe, but I felt like God wanted me to tell you he hasn't forgotten you." Naomi froze. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to breathe. Jenna smiled awkwardly. "Sorry if that's weird. I just felt like I needed to say it." Naomi nodded slowly. "No, thank you." That night, she sat on her bed, staring at the clock. It wasn't ticking. She whispered, "What are you?" The clock didn't answer, but something inside her shifted. The next morning, she woke up early. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the silent clock. She whispered, "God, if you're real, if you're trying to tell me something, I'm listening." Tick. The clock began to tick again. Naomi gasped. She stood up, pacing the room. "Okay, okay, this is crazy." But the clock kept ticking. She felt something inside her, a warmth, a stirring, a sense of direction she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know what to do, but she felt compelled to go somewhere. She grabbed her coat, slipped the clock into her pocket, and walked outside. She didn't know where she was going, she just walked. And the clock kept ticking. She walked past the grocery store, past the bus stop, past the familiar streets she traveled every day. She walked until she reached a small park she hadn't visited in years. There, sitting alone on a bench, was a woman crying softly. Naomi hesitated. She didn't know her. She didn't know what to say, but the clock in her pocket ticked louder. She sat beside the woman. "Are you okay?" The woman shook her head. "My son, he's in the hospital. I don't know if he's going to make it." Naomi felt her heart break. She whispered, "Can I pray for you?" The woman looked at her surprised. You would do that?" Naomi nodded. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know how to pray eloquently. She just placed her hand gently on the woman's shoulder and whispered, "God, please help her. Please help her son. Please show her she's not alone." The woman sobbed, leaning into her, and the clock ticked steadily. When Naomi walked home, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, purpose. But when she reached her apartment, the clock stopped again. She tapped it. Nothing. She whispered, "What now?" She whispered, "What now?" The question hung in the air like a fragile thread, stretching between her and the silent clock. She sat there for a long time, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But the room remained still. The clock remained quiet, and the silence felt heavier than before. The next morning, Naomi woke with a dull ache in her chest. She moved through her routine like a ghost: shower, clothes, shoes, keys, each step automatic, each breath shallow. She walked to work with her head down, the world around her blurred by exhaustion and confusion. At the grocery store, everything felt off. The lights seemed too bright. The customers felt too loud. Her thoughts felt too heavy. She kept glancing at the clock in her pocket, even though she knew it wasn't ticking. During her break, she sat outside on a concrete step behind the store. The air was cool, the sky gray, and the world felt strangely distant. She pulled the clock from her pocket and stared at it. "Why did you stop?" she whispered. A soft breeze brushed against her cheek, but the clock remained silent. She closed her eyes. "God, I don't know what you want from me." Nothing. She felt foolish. She felt abandoned. She felt like she had imagined everything. When her shift ended, she walked home slowly, dragging her feet. The city felt heavier than usual: cars honking, people rushing, sirens wailing in the distance. She felt swallowed by the noise, lost in the chaos. By the time she reached her apartment, she was exhausted. She dropped her bag on the floor, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed onto her bed. The clock lay on her nightstand, still and silent. She stared at it for a long time, her eyes burning with unshed tears. "Why did you start if you were just going to stop?" she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Why give me hope? Just to take it away?" She covered her face with her hands and let the tears fall. She cried until her chest ached, until her breath came in shuddering gasps, until she felt empty. When she finally looked up, the room was dim. The sun had set, leaving only the soft glow of the streetlights filtering through her curtains. The clock remained silent. Naomi wiped her face and sat up slowly. She reached for the clock, holding it gently in her hands. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I don't know what you're trying to tell me." She closed her eyes, and in the quiet she felt something. Not a sound, not a voice, but a presence, a warmth, a stillness, a whisper that wasn't a whisper. "You're trying to earn what I freely give." Her eyes flew open and the room was silent. The clock was silent, but the words echoed in her spirit. She swallowed hard. "Earn what?" The answer came softly, like a breath against her soul. "My love, my guidance, my will." She stared at the clock, her heart pounding. "You think my will is a path you must find," the whisper continued. "But my will is a person you must trust." Her breath caught in her throat. She looked down at the clock in her hands. It remained still, but she understood. The clock wasn't broken. She was. She had been chasing purpose like it was a destination. She had been treating God's will like a puzzle to solve. She had been trying to force direction instead of surrendering to relationship. She whispered, "I'm sorry." The words felt small, but they were real. She closed her eyes again. "I surrender." Tick. The clock ticked once, just once, but the sound echoed through her chest like a heartbeat. She didn't panic, she didn't jump up, she didn't run out the door. She simply sat there holding the clock, letting the single tick settle into her spirit. The next morning, she woke with a strange sense of peace, not clarity, not certainty, but peace. She got dressed, made breakfast, and sat at her small kitchen table with the clock beside her. It wasn't ticking, but she didn't need it to. She whispered, "Lead me today." She didn't feel a push. She didn't feel a pull. She didn't feel anything dramatic. She just felt present. She walked to work with her head up, noticing things she had never noticed before: the way the sunlight hit the buildings, the sound of birds hidden in the trees, the laughter of children walking to school. At the grocery store, she moved with intention, greeting customers with genuine warmth. She found herself smiling, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. During her break, she sat outside again. The air was warm, the sky clear. She pulled the clock from her pocket and held it gently. Still silent, she whispered, "It's okay." She didn't need it to tick to know she was where she needed to be, but later that afternoon, something unexpected happened. A man entered the store, tall, weary, with eyes that looked like they carried the weight of the world. He wandered the aisles aimlessly, picking things up and putting them back down. Naomi felt a nudge in her spirit. "Talk to him." She hesitated. "God, I don't know him." The nudge grew stronger. She approached him slowly. "Excuse me, are you looking for something?" The man looked at her, his eyes filled with pain. I I don't know." She nodded gently. "Are you okay?" He swallowed hard. "My wife, she left, took the kids. I don't know what to do." Naomi felt her heart ache. She whispered, "You're not alone." The man's eyes filled with tears. "It feels like I am." Naomi reached into her pocket and felt the clock. Tick. Her breath caught. The clock was ticking. She placed her hand on the man's arm. Can I pray for you? He nodded, tears streaming down his face. She prayed softly, asking God to comfort him, guide him, and remind him that he was not forgotten. When she finished, the man whispered, "Thank you." Naomi smiled gently. "You're welcome." As he walked away, the clock in her pocket fell silent again. But Naomi didn't panic. She understood now. The clock wasn't meant to guide her every step. It was meant to teach her to listen, to trust, to surrender. That evening, as she walked home, she felt lighter than she had in years. The city felt different, not because it had changed, but because she had. When she reached her apartment, she placed the clock on her nightstand and sat on her bed. She whispered, "Thank you." The clock remained silent, but her heart was ticking. That night, Naomi sat on the edge of her bed, the clock resting quietly in her hands. She traced the smooth wooden edges with her thumb, feeling a strange mixture of peace and anticipation. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of the unknown. Days passed, and Naomi found herself moving through life with a new kind of awareness. She listened more, she noticed more, she felt more connected to people, to moments, to God. The clock ticked sometimes, stopped other times, but she no longer treated it like a compass. It had become something else entirely, a reminder, a teacher, a symbol of surrender. One evening, after a long but peaceful day at work, Naomi decided to take a different route home. She walked through a quiet neighborhood lined with old trees and warm porch lights. The air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine and freshly cut grass. As she walked, she heard faint music drifting from a small community center. Curious, she stepped closer and peeked through the open door. Inside, a group of teenagers were gathered in a circle, laughing and talking. A woman stood at the front, speaking with passion and warmth. "And remember," the woman said, "you are not accidents. You are not mistakes. You are chosen. You are loved." Naomi felt something stir inside her. The woman noticed her at the door and smiled. "Come in," she said gently. Naomi hesitated, then stepped inside. The woman approached her. "Welcome, I'm Pastor Elise." Naomi nodded. "I'm Naomi." "Glad you're here," Elise said. "We're just finishing up our youth mentorship night." Naomi glanced around. The room felt alive, full of hope, full of purpose, full of something she couldn't quite name. Elise studied her for a moment. "You look like someone who's been searching." Naomi swallowed. "I guess I have." Elise smiled softly. "You're not alone." The words hit Naomi like a wave. She blinked back tears. I I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life." Elise nodded. "Most people don't. But purpose isn't something you chase. It's something you grow into." Naomi felt her breath catch. Elise continued, "Tell me, what has God been showing you lately?" Naomi hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out the clock. Elise's eyes widened slightly. "May I?" Naomi handed it to her. Elise held the clock gently, turning it over in her hands. "This is beautiful." "It only ticks sometimes," Naomi said softly. "And I thought it was supposed to guide me, but I think it was teaching me to listen." Elise nodded slowly. "God speaks in many ways, sometimes through people, sometimes through moments, sometimes through silence." Naomi felt tears welling in her eyes again. Elise handed the clock back. "What do you feel when it ticks?" "Purpose," Naomi whispered. "Clarity, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "And when it stops?" Naomi took a shaky breath. "Like I'm supposed to trust." Elise smiled. "Then you've already learned more than most." The room grew quiet. Elise placed a gentle hand on Naomi's shoulder. "Naomi, Have you ever considered that your purpose might be connected to people, to helping them, to being present in their pain? Naomi thought of the woman on the park bench, the man in the grocery store, the moments when the clock had ticked. She nodded slowly. I think I think that's when I feel most alive. Elise's smile widened. Then maybe that's where your calling begins. Naomi felt something shift inside her, like a door opening, like light breaking through clouds. She whispered, "But I'm just me." Elise shook her head gently. There is no just in God's vocabulary. Naomi closed her eyes, letting the words sink deep. When she opened them, Elise said, "We meet here every week. You're welcome any time." Naomi nodded. "Thank you." As she stepped outside, the night air felt different, lighter, warmer, alive with possibility. She walked home slowly, her heart full. When she reached her apartment, she placed the clock on her nightstand and sat beside it. She whispered, "God, I don't know where this is going, but I trust you." Tick. The clock began to tick, softly, steadily, like a heartbeat. But this time, Naomi didn't reach for her coat. She didn't run out the door. She didn't look for someone to help. She simply sat there, letting the sound wash over her, because she understood now. The ticking wasn't a command. It wasn't a direction. It wasn't a signal to move. It was a reminder that God was with her, a reminder that she was not forgotten, a reminder that purpose wasn't a destination, it was a relationship. Weeks passed, and Naomi began volunteering at the community center. She helped with the youth group, listened to their stories, prayed with them, laughed with them. She found herself becoming someone she never imagined she could be, someone steady, someone compassionate, someone present. The clock ticked sometimes, stopped other times, but Naomi no longer depended on it. She depended on God. One afternoon, as she was leaving the center, she noticed a young girl sitting alone on the steps. The girl looked no older than 13, her eyes red from crying. Naomi sat beside her. "Hey, you okay?" The girl shook her head. "My mom, she's sick, really sick." Naomi felt her heart ache. "I'm so sorry." The girl wiped her eyes. "I don't know what to do." Naomi reached into her pocket and felt the clock. Tick. She placed her arm around the girl. "You don't have to do it alone." The girl leaned into her, sobbing softly. Naomi held her, whispering prayers under her breath. When the girl finally calmed, Naomi said, "Can I show you something?" She pulled out the clock and placed it in the girl's hands. The girl looked at it, confused. "What is it?" "It's a reminder," Naomi said softly, "that even when things feel silent, God is still with you." The girl traced the wooden edges with her fingers. "It's beautiful." Naomi smiled. "It's yours." The girl's eyes widened. "Really?" Naomi nodded. "Really." The girl hugged her tightly. "Thank you." As Naomi walked home, her pocket felt empty, but her heart felt full. When she reached her apartment, she sat on her bed and whispered, "Thank you." She didn't need the clock anymore, because the lesson had become part of her. Purpose wasn't something she chased, it was something she lived, one surrendered moment at a time. And somewhere, in the hands of a young girl who needed hope, the little wooden clock ticked softly, a reminder, a promise, a parable for the modern soul.